Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. Fabulous Bree here, and we are back with another movies and makeovers, you guys. This is starting to become fun. Even though this is just my second time doing this kind of video, this kind of content for my channel, I'm actually really excited to start this up. So if you have not seen the last video, I know this is new, so it's not gonna really catch on really quick. But if you guys haven't seen the last one, you need to see that one because this will be part 2 of Fear Street, and this one is going to be taking place in 1978. So definitely check out the first one before you see this one. This is a trilogy that I am going over for my movies and makeovers, and then I will get into some other movies that I've seen, even old movies, you know, hood movies, all that good stuff, because I like to watch everything. Like, I'm one of them type of people. But yes, y'all, so let's just go ahead and jump right into this content. So if you guys have not been watching this trilogy of Fear Street, I recently as of last night just watched the third and final one to the Fear Street part 1, part 2, part 3. Y'all, what the heck? Part 3 definitely took me for a loop. But before we get into that, we finna cover part 2. Now with this one, I was kind of just like, hey, what the freak is going on? It was pretty much all over the place too. So this one sets the tone as in the 70s. So this is going to take cover over C. Berman and her sister Cindy. So we're going to actually see the story behind that, on what happened to her and why she's the way she is, and how does she know that it's not over. Yeah. So this takes place in 1978. I know I said that like 3 times already. Basically, the girls are away for summer at this summer camp called Nightwing. Camp Nightwing. I know in the last one I kept saying Night Owl, but I was close, I was close to it. It's gearing up. It starts off, the way it starts off though just had me like, what the heck? Somebody would have got their ass beat, okay? So it starts off with C. Berman, what everybody called her Ziggy. That was like her, street nickname. So she liked to be called Ziggy. She liked to go by Ziggy. So the scene starts off with Ziggy just running for her life. And you don't know what's going on until a dude pretty much, what is that called? Arm slams her. Like, she runs into his arm and she falls into the ground, which her nose is bleeding already. So, it started with that, and then they kind of dragging her to this tree or whatever. And it's a crowd of kids. They're all saying like, oh, she's a witch, da 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 da. And this one girl is kind of like interrogating her, and she just like, F off, you don't know what you're talking about. All of that good stuff. You really don't know what's going on because, for one, you thinking that it's already, people assuming that she's a witch or whatever, like she's cursed or something like that. But in actuality, it's just kids bullying kids, basically. So it's a girl. It's kind of like a rivalry between Ziggy and this girl. So she's kind of like accusing her of stealing some money. Yeah, and then one of the camp counselors like came out of nowhere like, hey, what's going on? And then at first they was gonna kick out Ziggy. But the kid, Nick Good, keep that name in mind, Nick Good actually stopped that from happening, because they was like, what are you gonna expect if she goes home and then her mom or parents or somebody is asking about the burn on her arm and stuff like that. So because the girl actually was about to burn her, so it was crazy. The first scene was pretty much like, what the heck? Like, this little girl would have got her ass beat if that was me, like, basically. So she's up here, pleading her case like, I only talking about some she stole some money from me, and Ziggy is talking about, what are you talking about? That's my money. She was like, then why are you running? And she was like, I was only running because you guys started chasing me out of nowhere. Like, so of course, like, I'll probably do the same thing, or no, really, I'll probably be like, what's up? What you want to do? But yeah, so the Nick Good kid ended up pleading her case and like keeping her from getting kicked out of summer camp. And they was like, well, I am gonna tell your sister, or whatever the case may be. So that happens. So that was the first scene. It kind of set the tone of the movie, but not like in part 1 where stuff was just really going left. Stuff was crazy in that first scene. But that's pretty much how that first one went. It wasn't too intense like the part 1 was, but it definitely kind of like set the tone of this one too. So after all that went down, the scene kind of switches over to her sister, and it's showing her trying to clean up the outhouse, basically the bathrooms. Her and her boyfriend Thomas, or Tommy, they call him Tommy Slater. She's in there with him. They're trying to clean up this red. It looks like, I don't know what it's like a fuzzy red substance or whatever, and she's really trying to scrub it off of the toilet seats and stuff because it was starting to become a problem. You know, they're in there scrubbing. She's like, oh my God, I'm over this. This is not coming off. And, you know, they're having their little teen moment, like, you know, and he started kissing her, but, you know, she's a virgin. She wasn't trying to go further than the kiss. You know how virgins do. But she wasn't trying to go further than a kiss. So Tommy respected that. He was like a sweet kid. You know what I'm saying? So what goes down, you wouldn't expect that. Like, what the heck? So he was sweet, you know, respectful. Like, okay, you know, we can stick to kissing. I respect your, you know, what you want to do. You like, you're not ready to have sex. So, okay, cool. So then it switch over to her friend who is a wild card. Okay. I can't remember her name, but like I did in the last one, I will put up everybody's picture with their name so you can know who I'm talking about, like references when I'm like her boyfriend, Cause I do remember some names, but not all of them. So her friend and her boyfriend was actually just getting it in. Cause she was like, wait, where is whatchamacallit? Cause they were supposed to be in there helping them scrub down the bathrooms. But the scene switches over to them, you know, getting their groove on, they swerve on. And she ends up walking in on him. And she's like, oh my God. And she was like, what's wrong, Cindy? You know, like taunting her in a way. And the backstory behind them, like they used to be like really, really close, but at one point, because Cindy was actually trying to like change her life around. She was hating that she was from Shady Side. I don't think she was hating that she was from Shady Side, but she was just kind of over the fact that, you know, Shady Side is cursed and she doesn't want to live their lifestyle. She wants a better life. So she started switching up, you know, her antics and like the way that she dressed and, you know, how she talks and everything like that. She started switching up her friends because she was kind of like, I don't want to be a product of my environment. So her friend at the Night Owl camp, you know, Night Owl, look at me, Nightwing, Nightwing camp, she was kind of saying that like, you used to be cool, you know what I'm saying? Now you just this like snobby, preppy kind of girl, annoying basically. So she was like, you used to be cool, remember that? Cindy kind of walked off like, yeah, whatever. So now the scene kind of switches to her little sister Ziggy and the nurse. So Ziggy is in the nurse room, you know, trying to get her burn checked out or whatever. She needs to get her arm wrapped up. So nurse, damn, what's her name? Not Nurse Lane. What the freak was her name? No, it was Nurse Lane. Because, oh my God, okay. I just had like a recollection, like something just kind of popped in my head like, yo, there was Nurse Lane. Oh my God. So Ruby Lane, okay, let me not go too far. It switched to her, Nurse Lane and Ziggy. They're in the nurse office and Nurse Lane just kind of seemed out of it. Let me just say it like that. She's not herself. She's kind of like speaking under her breath, like saying weird things. And Ziggy is kind of sitting there like, is everything okay? You know, Nurse Lane, like she was kind of cool with her, but then out of nowhere, she just started acting really, really strange, you know? So she's like sitting there just listening to her talk like, and she's like wrapping her arm and then under her breath, she's kind of saying like a nursery rhyme about, Sarah Fear, basically, like the haunting of Sarah Fear. For some reason, she's just like, yeah, you know, nothing's. I don't really remember everything she was saying, but she was really just mumbling like a whole bunch of crazy stuff. And Ziggy is just kind of sitting there like, okay, like, are you okay? Do I need to call for help or something? And as she was tying the bandage around her arm, you know, it was getting tighter and tighter. So Ziggy was like, Nurse Lane, like calling her name, like Nurse Lane. And then she was like, Nurse Lane, like shook her, and she kind of snapped out of it like, oh, I'm sorry, like, did I hurt you? Da, 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 da. And she was like, no. And then she was like, is everything okay? And then she just kind of got up and walked off. So that scene was kind of weird as well. You know, Ziggy was kind of left in a mindset of like, okay, like some weird stuff is really happening around here. Like the kids are trying to beat her up and kill her basically. And now Nurse Lane is up here mumbling weird stuff under her breath and kind of hurting me, you know what I'm saying? So she was thinking that basically she was a target at this time. Like she feel like everybody was like against her. So, you know, she's kind of left like, So now the scene kind of switches over to, well, it was still, I'm moving too fast. So after Cindy walked in on her friend and them having sex, they started smoking weed and stuff. She kind of ran into the other camp counselor that kind of was trying to kick out Ziggy, and he ended up finding her sister and was like trying to tell her what's going on. And then he was like sniffing the air like, there better be a skunk, like, because he smelled the weed and stuff that her friends were like smoking on or whatever. So she was like, she just walked off like, okay, get out my face, you know I'm not doing nothing like that. So then it switched over to the nurse scene with Ziggy kind of, you know, Nurse Lane was kind of going crazy on Ziggy's arm. Now Cindy is trying to look for her sister after getting the information that she's kind of causing trouble with the other kids or whatever. So she went to go look for her, and she found her and caught up with her and she was like in her room or whatever. She was just like, what is going on and all this stuff. And she was like kind of just like going in on her sister, like, you never believe me, you always think I'm a problem starter, just like really going in on her sister. Her sister is just kind of standing there like, what is wrong with you? Like, what is wrong with everybody? Because not that her friend, not only that her friend kind of went in on her and was like talking shit and like making her feel bad, her sister started doing the same thing. Like, just, you just changed, you're not the same, you're not my friend, you're not my sister, you know, all of that good stuff. Because Cindy started like becoming like this really goody two-shoe person out of nowhere. So everybody from Shady Side that she knew that she was close to was just kind of like, you know, we good on you, like, you doing too much, you like to snitch on people, all that crazy stuff. So yeah, so she was going in on her, and then Cindy was left standing there like you are not my sister either, like, you have changed as well. And then she was like, okay, what have I changed into? And she was like, a monster, you are a freaking monster. So she was like, oh yeah, tell me something I don't know, basically. So she opened up her door, and like her room was trash, because on the scene where you know, it was a scene prior before she met up with her to talk with her and her boyfriend went into the mess hall, or the lunch area where all the kids would go and eat, and they were trying to clean up that area, basically, like get it together. I think this was like the first day of camp, you know what I'm saying, because all of this it happened in a week. In the beginning it says the first week of camp or something like that, but this seemed like this all happened in one day, basically. You know, they was preparing everything for all the kids, like trying to clean the mess hall and stuff like that. And her boyfriend was, at first she was in there by herself, I think, and she started hearing like weird noises and stuff, so she thought it was her boyfriend trying to scare her. So she was like, okay, you know, you're scaring me, kind of like how I was in the first movie when the girl was at the movie at the bookstore, and she was talking about her friend Ryan, which was not Ron. I said his name was Ron, but his name was Ryan. And she was just kind of like, yeah, you're scaring me or whatever, good job. So that's basically what she was doing. So he ended up coming through the front door like, hey, and she was like looking at him like, aren't you in here, you know, making all this noise? And he was just kind of like, no, I just walked in here. So they went to go investigate the noises, and then they saw Nurse Lane walk out from the kitchen area holding a knife. Nurse Lane is pretty much going crazy, you know what I'm saying, talking under her breath again, saying some crazy stuff. And then she looked at Tommy and was like, hey, I'm gonna kill you because you're gonna die tonight anyways, and I have to kill you because of the curse, like I have to stop the curse, basically. So she was saying all of that, and they was kind of stuck like looking there like, what are you talking about? Like, so she started running towards Tommy with the knife, but Tommy ended up grabbing her. They was tussling or whatever. They ended up falling to the ground, and I think he got pricked by the knife a little bit because, you know, a little blood started getting everywhere. His blood, you know how that go. His blood started getting everywhere. He ended up tussling with her and ended up like pushing her really hard where she hit her head on one of the tables and she passed out. So Tommy is sitting there, and Cindy was kind of frozen in action because she didn't know what to do. She was just kind of like, what the heck is going on? Like, Nurse Lane is tripping, like she going crazy. So, you know, they ended up calling the police, and all the kids are like standing outside like, oh my god, what's going on, something wrong with Nurse Lane. And then she was trying to say that, like, speak that to her sister, like something is wrong with Nurse Lane, like she's literally like, because when I was getting my arm wrapped, she was going crazy, you know, talking crazy, and kind of did the same thing to me. So her sister wasn't believing it or whatever, just kind of like brushing it off. So she ended up rushing off, about to go to her room. And then one of the bully girls from the beginning of the video had stopped her and was like, you might want to check out your room. I think something happened or something like that. So back to the scene where she was kind of going off on her sister and was letting her know that she's changed and she don't really mess with her no more and stuff like that. And her sister Cindy ended up calling her a monster. So she kind of was like, yeah, tell me something I don't know. So that's when she opened up the door, and her room was completely trashed. They were saying it was all kinds of slander on her wall. It was trash on her bed and all of that stuff. And Cindy was kind of standing there like, oh my god. So she ended up closing the door on her. So now the scene switches over to them in the rec room, and you know, one of the camp counselors is trying to reassure the kids like everything's gonna be okay. We're still gonna have a fun weekend. We're still gonna have a fun week, like just, you know, ignore that something went wrong with Nurse Lane, we're gonna get that handled, basically. So all the kids were kind of like, well, you know, he did some kind of cheer, and everybody was like turned up after that. So then they had like a little game series that was gonna go on. He was explaining about the game that they will be playing later on the night. It's called Colors or something like that. So it'll be the red team against the blue team, basically Sunnyvale against Shady Side. So Shady Side was blue and Sunnyvale was red. It was kind of like a game of tag. You have to kind of like catch people and then lock them up or whatever. So you'll lock them up in an area where, you know, nobody can come and get them. But if one of the Sunnysiders were able to break through and kind of like get to wherever they're got them held hostage, they can like let them free or whatever and they run loose. So it was kind of a game like that. It was really strange, you know, and they was playing it at night too. But as they was preparing and like splitting everybody up in groups, Slater, Tommy was actually like helping the kids and kind of telling them, you know, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna beat them and da 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 da. But then he ended up like blanking out because Sarah Fear was calling his name. So you start seeing the fly like flying around him and he's just kind of like zoning out, listening to the name, listening to the person calling his name or whatever, because, you know, he's possessed or whatever. He's one of the people that's going to be possessed. So one of the little boys was like, Mr. Slater. And then his girlfriend ended up coming out of nowhere like Tommy, like calling his name, and he snapped out of it. So he's like, huh, what, did I do something wrong or whatever? She was like, no, you know, you was kind of zoning out, like, or whatever the case may be. So he kind of walked off or whatever. So they kind of went about their business and was just like trying to get things together. You know, Cindy kind of pulled Tommy to the side and was like, you know, what happened with Nurse Lane? That just wasn't normal. Like, we need to go again and go investigate to see what probably caused her to act the way that she did. Because, you know, Nurse Lane, she was like a sweet person. That's how everybody was describing her. Like, this is not something that's normal. So her and Tommy ended up going to like her office or whatever, the nurse room / her office, to kind of like walk around and like, you know, rummage through things to like figure out what's going on or whatever, so they can turn it into the police and they can kind of like investigate that or whatever. So they was walking around, Slater kind of going through the drawers and stuff, and then Cindy kind of like walking around looking through the cabinets and everything to see if they can find anything that just stands out and it looks suspicious. So Tommy actually ended up coming across a book / diary in a way that Nurse Lane was kind of writing in. She was pretty much tracking or journaling her experience or her journey with trying to figure out how to end the curse that's on the town or whatever, the curse of Sarah Fear. So Tommy is looking at it and reading it, and then Cindy kind of noticed that, you know, he wasn't looking right. So she walked up to him like, hey, you know, what is this? Is everything okay? And he's like, no, this is some kind of like journal or like steps or something on how to do something. So she ended up looking at it and like reading it and stuff like that, and she was just like, wow. And it's like a nursery rhyme. If you see in part 1, like it was written all over the school bathrooms and stuff like that. It's a certain nursery rhyme that she kind of like, I don't think she came up with it by herself, but it was kind of like brought to her in a way. So she had it written down in there and they was kind of reading it out loud like, this is really, really strange. And then Cindy was like, well, I found these bottle of pills. Like, it didn't have anything written on it. It was kind of like a bottle of mystery pills. That's what they thought. So they ended up leaving Nurse Lane's office and going back to like the area where the camp counselors kind of chill at or whatever. And her friend and her boyfriend were actually in there just chilling around. So when they went in there, they was kind of talking and they was like, hey, what you got in your hand or whatever, like taunting her and stuff. And she was like, this is some evidence or whatever that I'm gonna turn into the police. And her friend was like, oh my God, you are such a, you know, something she said. She called her something, I can't remember what it was, but basically just calling her like, Lord, you are a boring person now. Like, you never want to have fun anymore. Like, they just really going in on her again. So she was just like, no, you know, I'm not gonna do nothing that I don't need to do. And then her friend actually ended up snatching the pill bottle out of her hand and was like, well, we'll figure out what it is. Basically, they was kind of like them type of people from the 70s that was like drugs, psychedelics and stuff like that. So her boyfriend, she gave the bottle to her boyfriend and he ended up opening it and it said L7 something. It was like a number and letters on there. He was like, this is strange. I don't know what this is. So they ended up taking one like, okay, let's just figure it out from this. So they ended up popping the pills from the bottle. Cindy's friend kind of saw her holding the book or whatever. So she snatched that out of her hand like, what's this? And she was like, oh my God, like this is just evidence, you guys. Like, I'm going to turn it into the police so they can kind of see what's going on with Nurse Lane. And they're just kind of like, no, you know, let's just keep everything. So they opened the book and started like reading everything that was on there, kind of like making fun of it, like, oh, she was weird, stuff like that. So Cindy is kind of like getting agitated by them because they never want to take anything serious. So she just kind of like skimming through the book or whatever, and she kind of came across a page that looked like a map, and it's supposed to lead to Sarah Fear's, I think her body or something like that. No, her hand. Because in the nursery rhyme, it says you have to put the hand back to the body in order to end the curse or whatever. She was like, well, let's go find it. Let's go on an adventure. And it was nighttime. And this was around the time where all the kids too was kind of playing the game, the colors game that they came up with for them. While that's going on, kids is running around while they are going to figure out where does this map leads to or whatever. So they ended up walking through the woods, like just, I feel like that part was just like really stupid. Like that girl, she was kind of like getting on my nerves in a way too, because she wasn't really taking nothing serious. And you want to go and investigate something that you have no idea about. They pretty much again think the whole curse thing is a hoax in a way, like they don't believe it's real. So that's why they kind of was just like playing around like, oh, let's just go and find it, let's follow the map or whatever to see what we find and stuff like that. So that's basically how that scene was going, and that was like pissing me off. It was making me so mad. But what's a scary movie without having a little dumb person that want to go do some stupid stuff? So as they're walking through the woods, you know, they kind of make it to this area. It kind of led them to like this hole in the ground in a way. They were looking down like, oh, you know, started yelling like Sarah Fear's name, like, oh, is this where she lays or whatever or something like that. So her friend was kind of yelling Sarah Fear's name, like, Sarah Fear, like, come out wherever you are, like just being really stupid. Like stuff like that you don't want to really play around with. Like even in real life, like right now, if like on some paranormal type stuff, like you really don't want to mess with the dead like that, like taunting them and making fun of this stuff. Like I just think that's so weird. But that's pretty much what they were doing, and her friend ended up falling down into the hole. So she fell down, but it was like stairs anyways, and she popped back up and was like, come on, you know, it's something down here, let's check it out. So they ended up going downstairs in a thing. And Cindy was kind of like, listen, y'all, like let's just go. We found it. You had your fun. Like, let's go back to the campsite. Like this is not fun anymore. This is starting to get really weird. So Tommy, if you keep a eye on him, you kind of notice that he ends up falling deep into the trance or whatever. He started to hear the Sarah, I guess that's Sarah's Fear's voice calling his name even more, like Tommy, or no, Thomas, because his name was Thomas, but they call him Tommy for short. It was like calling his name, and he kind of shook it off. They like, hey Tommy, come on, you know. So he started walking down the stairs, and they ended up finding like this weird, like, I don't know what to call it. It looks like how would I put this in words? It's basically a cave, and it got like all this weird stuff in there, like ritual type of stuff or whatever, and like it's just a bunch of weird stuff, and they're kind of down there like, what the heck was this? Like, was this Nurse Lane's like type of thing that she'll do or whatever? Like, was she into like this witchcraft stuff? So it basically looked like a bunch of witchcraft stuff. They kind of noticed the wall. Well, no, the wall wasn't in there. Cindy's friend was kind of walking around, and they end up finding like an area or whatever behind like a shelf. So they saw this wall, and like they ended up crawling under there, and Cindy was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. So she ended up following them and going, you know, under the little passageway or whatever. So when they're in there, they're kind of like looking around like, oh my God, it was like a goat head and like all kinds of like weird stuff in there. So Tommy, he ended up staying on the outside, but at this point, he's just pretty much like out of it. Like he not even Tommy no more. Like he's pretty much possessed at this point. So he's sitting on the bench, and he kind of like zoned out, just looking like real crazy. So while they're in there investigating, they end up arguing and stuff. So she was like, I'm out of here. Well, her boyfriend was like, I'm out of here. Y'all doing too much, basically. So he ended up going back out there where Tommy was. So he was trying to explain to him like, yo, I'm about to go back to the campsite. You want to tag along? And he wasn't saying nothing. And he was just calling his name like, Tommy, you know, like, hey, like clapping his hands and stuff like, you okay? And Tommy is just like zoned all the way out. So he ended up like, okay, whatever. So he ended up getting up to walk out, and the girls was crawling back to the other side as well. So when that happened, Tommy ended up standing up, grabbing an axe that was on the wall, and his friend, the other girl's boyfriend, ended up like turning around because I guess he heard him get up or whatever. And he's looking, and Tommy is walking towards him with the axe, and he looking like, hey man, like what you doing? Like he's calling his name like, Tommy. And Tommy just went in like just started. It was crazy. The scene, the graphics in this Fear Street stuff, like it's on a whole nother level. So he was going in like beating his head in with the axe, and the girls like saw that and was kind of like screaming like, oh my God. So Tommy ended up hearing them screaming, and he turned around, and they ended up running back under the passageway or whatever to go back to the other room. So while they doing that, Tommy is like following them or whatever. So they're trying to figure out what to do. But if you notice, like, well, when you see it, Cindy actually noticed another area that was behind like a shelf, some kind of shelf, and it looked like it kept going, because she mentioned that too, like, it looks like this keeps going or whatever. So she remembered looking at that, so she went over there and they both pushed the little shelf down to go under that passageway as well. And when they did that, she let the other girl go first, and then Cindy was about to go under. Her boyfriend ended up grabbing her foot and was about to like trying to pull her back so he can kill her, but you know, they were tussling or whatever, and she ended up kicking him and he ended up flying into the wall or whatever. And then it started like a I don't know, I guess the impact of him flying into the wall started like a little mini avalanche type thing where all the rocks started falling down, and they were pretty much trapped in this cave. Like, they don't have nothing else to do. So at this point, they're just kind of like stuck there, like screaming like, oh my God, we're about to die. Like, we're really about to die. This is how we're gonna die. You know, the scene kind of got calm, but you could still hear Tommy on the other side breathing really heavy. So she was like, he's still right there. So, you know, the other girl, she's like panicking, freaking out, like, yo, like, we're not gonna get out of here, da 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 da, just like going crazy. And then Cindy like kind of shook her, like, hey, like, calm down. Let's try to figure out how to get out of here. Like, I'm sure it's a way to get out of here. And the other girl just lost all hope. She just like, nah, it's no way to get out of here. Like, I'm sure of it. So Tommy actually ended up leaving out of there. And this is when he starts going to the campsite. And this is where in my mind, I'm just like, oh my God, he about to go and kill all of these kids. And all I was thinking the whole time, like, poor babies. That's all I could think about the whole time. Like, oh my God, he finna go kill these kids. So he ended up leaving out of that place and walking towards the campsite. And you know, the scene, it kind of gets you emotional. Like, I like how they switch up the scenes so you can get emotionally like invested into certain situations. So it was kind of like that. Switch to the scene where the kids kind of running around playing and stuff like that. So it switched to a scene where one of the kids, what's his name? I cannot remember his name, but it's the kid that was talking to Tommy when he was trying to show them what to do before it went nightfall or whatever. It's that kid. He kind of got some of the Sunnyvale kids held hostage in their like tag game that they got going on, and he's like trying to start conversation like, oh, you know, let's talk, do you want anything to drink? And they're just kind of like, shut up. Like, so they started hearing noises outside of the cabin that they was like standing in. So one of the Sunnyvalers was like, you might want to go check that out, don't you? So he was like, oh yeah, for sure. So he ended up opening the door. He was trying to build up the courage though, because he thought it was another Sunnyvaler that was about to come and interrupt the game. You know, because I think the premise of the game is like, if a Sunnyvaler or if the opposite team comes and like does something to where it distracts the other person, they're able to save the individuals that's like held hostage or whatever. So he thought it was something like that, which it was, but when he opened the door, nobody was standing right there. So he was like, So it got real quiet. So you already know something is about to go down because it got super quiet. And the boy is just kind of looking out the door like, you know, his face is looking like, what the heck? And then the Sunnyvale kids ended up coming out of nowhere. They had like eggs and stuff. So they started to egg him, and they ended up saving the other hostages. I cannot talk that were in there, and they ended up running out. Everybody ended up running out. So he's kind of like, oh man, you know, like he feels defeated because he feels like he messed up or whatever. He's standing there, and then he ended up hearing footsteps again. So when that happened, he turned around, he saw Tommy with the axe, and he had blood all over him. So he's looking like Mr. Thomas, or no, he called him Mr. Slater. He was like, Mr. Slater, because his last name was Slater. So he was like, Mr. Slater, are you okay? So he ended up running up to him and he ended up killing the baby, killing that kid. And it was just like, oh my God. But you know, I feel like it's a good thing that Netflix kind of made it in a way where it does not actually show him killing the kid, but the premise of it kind of like filmed around it and far away from it. So you kind of got an idea like, dang, he just killed that kid. So that happened, and the scene ended up switching back to the girls like in the cave, like trying to really come up with a plan. Well, Cindy is really trying to come up with a plan while her friend was just like panicking still, like nothing's gonna work, we're not gonna get out of here, Cindy, this is how we're gonna die, this is how we're gonna die. So they're arguing like back and forth, and she just kind of was like, you know what, like she was like, shut up. Like she kind of just went back into her how she used to act or whatever, and then she was like, oh, that's the Cindy that I miss or whatever, because she was like going in on her. And then she was was like, you know what, just forget it. Like, I'm gonna figure out a way to get out of here. So she walked off and was like, don't follow me. So she ended up walking off or whatever. She thought she was going somewhere, basically, like far away. But in actuality, she was just walking in a circle because the girl ended up popping out of nowhere, like scaring her, because she was like, boo. And then she was like, I told you not to follow me. She was like, you went into a circle, stupid. Like, you basically went in a circle. So they're left sitting there. So then it switches again back to the scene. And one of the camp counselors and another camp counselor, they getting their freak on. You know how that go. So after that, they're kind of like, the girl's left on the bed. She kind of like getting herself back together or whatever. And then she starts to hear crazy noises. So she ended up, no, she didn't hear noises. She ended up getting up from the bed, and I think she was about to like get something. And then she saw the door open. So she was looking like, okay, did somebody walk in here? Was somebody like watching us have sex or something like that? She ended up walking in the living room and kind of looking around. She went to the door and was looking around, and nobody was out there. Like, it was really quiet. So she was about to come back in, and she turned around and saw Tommy, and she was like, and he ended up just, she didn't have no time to be like, hey, or anything. He just ended up chopping her. So that went down. Then it goes back to the kids running around playing. No, it goes to the scene where Ziggy is actually trying to prank the girl that's been bullying her this whole time. They kind of trashed her room and stuff. So Nick Good ended up, you know, following her, coming to her room and stuff. And he was just like, what are you doing? You know, she was like, just get out of here. Like, you know, you don't want nothing to do with this. I'm just trying to get back at somebody. So he ended up like basically trying to help her and give her tips and stuff. So he ended up like giving her tips and stuff on what to do. And then they started talking, like basically building like this close bond or whatever. Because Nick Good actually liked Ziggy. Like, he was falling in like with her. That's what I'm gonna say. He was really liking her. So he was trying to do whatever she was doing, basically. So he helped her set up this little trap or whatever for the girl that was like basically bullying her. So it ends up at the scene where she kind of like bullying some other kids, like, just get in here, shut up, da 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 da. And then this other kid that was on the same team as her ended up giving her a piece of paper, and I think a dude that she was talking to at camp, she thought it was him or whatever, because it told her to come to the bathroom or whatever, now, like, come to the bathroom now or something like that. So she was like, okay. So she went to the bathroom, and it was like little rose petals, like flowers leading up to the door, which I thought was so weird. I'm like, oh my God. She thought it was like her little boyfriend and like set something up or whatever. But in actuality, it was Ziggy that was, you know, she set the trap up or whatever. She walks in, it's like little music playing and stuff. She was just like, I mean, we could have just went back to the room or whatever, but this is kind of cute too or whatever. It was a thing that said open this stall or whatever. And it was a note on the seat, and she opened it up and was like, look up Love Ziggy or something like that. When she looked up, it was like a pail of like bugs and fake blood that they poured on her. It was disgusting. So that scene went down, and it ended up them like running back to her room or whatever. So they ended up like running back to her room, and they kind of laughing about the situation, like, yo, we really got her and stuff like that. So from that scene, now it switches over to kids finding the boy's body, and it's like blood everywhere. So everybody is screaming. One of the camp counselors kind of came out of nowhere and was just like, everybody get to the rec hall. This is not a drill. They started ringing the bell and everything, and all of the kids started running, you know, towards the rec hall. And Ziggy, they ended up hearing like the screams and stuff. So they ended up running. Nick and Ziggy ended up running out there to see what was going on, and they saw the kid's body, and they're like, okay, let's go, let's go. So him just playing along. Look, listen, let me not get there, because in part 3 you're gonna really see what really went down. Like, it's crazy. But so, you know, he's like, okay, everybody get, you know, screaming them to get to the rec hall, and they're in there, and they just like, everybody calm down, everything's gonna be okay, we're calling for help to get off the campsite. So while that's going down, Nick kind of came to realization, like, oh, it's still kids out there, like, we need to go out here and figure out what's going on, like, what can we do? And so the other camp counselor was like, huh, like, looking like, we about to do what? Like, I'm not about to go out there. But he's like, yes, me and you, we are going out here to find the rest of these kids and to figure out what's going on, because at the time they didn't know that Tommy was the one that was going around like killing everybody. They ended up leaving, and then one of the girls ended up coming up to Ziggy, like pushing on her, like, what did you do with our friend or whatever, the girl that was bullying her? And then it hit her. She was just like, oh my God, I forgot about her. So she ended up running out and trying to get Nick's attention, like, we forgot her her or whatever. Like they left her in the bathroom. So she ended up running off like, okay, cool, I'm gonna just go and let her out. So then it switches over to the scene with the girls again, and her friend was kind of like reading through the book, and she was just like, I think I figured out a way to get out of this. So she was kind of like going over everything, telling her like it's saying this or whatever. It was like in the rhyme. She was kind of reading the rhyme again. So they kind of looking around and they found like a pathway that was different from the way that they were going. So they ended up going and like they ended up finding this room where it had like I guess the beating. So it was like a weird pulsating type of thing in the middle of the ground. And the girls, they're just kind of like walking around like looking like, what the heck? So they're looking at it. She's like staring at it like, So she ended up touching it. I don't know what be making them want to like touch stuff to see what it is, but she ended up touching it and she ended up seeing Seraphir and all of that stuff. And then Cindy ended up pulling her off of there, and she was just like, oh my God, I think I seen the witch or whatever. So that scene was crazy. So they started reading the book again and they figured out another way to get somewhere else. So pretty much the place where they were at, it kind of connected to everything. It was like a one big old maze that connected to all of the stuff there. Now it switches back to Ziggy going to the bathroom stall, trying to let the girl out. But when she opened it, she didn't see her in there. She was just like, okay, where are you? You know, calling her name. She ended up popping out of nowhere and they get to fighting because she was like, oh, you tried to trick me. So they pretty much like getting it in the bathroom stall, like fighting each other. And then the scenes just started switching up like crazy because there's so much going on. So it's trying to like keep up with everybody and everything that's going on. So it switches back to Nick walking around calling the kids' name, trying to figure out where everybody is. He found some more kids, told them to get back to the mess hall. The game is over. And then it goes back into these other kids that's pretty much hiding. That was from Shady Side, but one of the Sunnyvallers had them hostage. They hear the camp counselor nigga. They was like, we hear Mr. Good out there yelling. He was like, should we just leave? And he's like, no, stay put. I'm gonna go check it out. So he didn't let them out. And yeah, you know how that scene went. So when he left, they was also holding like a candlelight. He ended up taking a candlelight too and was trying to, and one of the people that was in there was like, I think we'll need that. But he ended up walking out anyways and like leaving them in the dark. So one of the other people that was in there actually had a lighter on them. So they brought the lighter up and they was kind of looking at each other and they started hearing weird noises. And then they kind of turned the lighter around. They saw Mr. Slater standing there covered in blood at this time. Like he's drenched. I don't know how many other people he done killed, but he's pretty much drenched in blood. And they start screaming and stuff, and then all you hear is just the slashing. Like he ended up killing all those kids that was in there. Like it was just sad. I'm just like, Lord, he killing all the babies. So from that scene, you know, it goes back to the bathroom fight that Ziggy is in, and that kind of ended because I think she ended up, no, one of the camp counselors ended up coming in there because I think he heard the tussling and stuff that was going on, and he opened the door and was like, what's going on? And she ended up like knocking the girl out. So she fell into a stall. Like I think she hit her head, so she ended up passing out. And he was like, what are you doing? You need to come on. But like, as he's talking, Tommy actually ended up popping up behind him and just cutting his head smooth off. But before that actually happened, Ziggy was like, no, you know, something is going on. We need to figure out something. Something had happened. No, she started hearing her sister like scream. She heard voices from the stall. Cause like when you open the stall, you can see deep down into the cave. Her Cindy and the girl was actually down there. They made their way to the maze. They can kind of, you know, be let free. But before all that happened, Cindy's friend actually ended up breaking her ankle because she took off running after putting her hand on there. She saw Cindy dead, basically, like zombie style, and she ended up screaming and like taking off running. And when she ran, she kind of ran the wrong way and ended up twisting her ankle and it broke. So that was another like, god dang, girl. They're walking, they ended up finding a way and they're screaming because I think they heard, no, they did hear like screaming and stuff. No, I'm going too fast. Cindy actually started seeing the red stuff and it was kind of leading up in a way to the bathroom stall. And she kind of remembered like, oh, this is into the bathroom. So we're right here at the campsite. She kind of helping her friend like hop over to the thing so they can climb up. And after getting there, they kind of hear the voices arguing up there. So they started screaming like, hey, help us. And Ziggy started hearing that faintly in the background. So she looking through the stalls like, what the heck? She opened up one of the toilet seats and looked down and saw her sister and her friend. And she like, what the heck? Like, how did y'all get down there? Like all of that stuff. And she was like, it doesn't matter. Like I'll explain later. Like just get us out of here. So they ended up trying to figure out how to get them out of there. They found like a string and stuff like that. A string. What is it called? A rope. because that definitely wasn't a string. They ended up finding a rope to kind of help pull them up, and a rope and a pail. And as they were doing that, Tommy ended up coming out of nowhere, and they ended up he ended up chopping off that counselor's head, and Ziggy turned around. No, they actually did get them up. And they turned around and saw Tommy, like, wow, okay. And then he ended up cutting off his head, and they just screaming and took off running. They like tussling with him. They end up getting out of there and running towards the rec center. But at this point, everybody is gone. They done got on the bus and they about to dip out. So Ziggy is running like, hey, trying to get their attention on the bus, but they gone, honey. They not stopping. So So she's like, shoot. So she ended up running to the rec hall and like closing the door and everything, trying to like keep away from Tommy. And at this time, Nick done popped out of nowhere. He was banging on the door and he was like, it's me. So she ended up opening the door. He got in there and they were trying to hide. Like Tommy ended up coming in there too. Like, it's just crazy. This scene, like this movie really had me on edge too, because it was just so much happening at once. But they ended up going in the rec hall, and Nick ended up meeting up with Ziggy, but Ziggy was like trying to tell him to be quiet because Tommy was in there or whatever. So they were hiding behind like tables and stuff. And so yeah, they're like hiding behind the tables, and he's just in there just walking around, because I think if you notice that Ziggy actually was one of the people too, because her nose was bleeding, that he was trying to find to kill. So he was like sniffing around, like basically trying to smell her blood, or just smell her scent and get to her. He couldn't find her, so he just hitting stuff, knocking over stuff. He ended up hitting his glass with a snake in there, and the snake ended up falling to the ground. And Ziggy like started patting on her friend and was like patting on Nick, like, look, the snake is about to come towards us. They're both just sitting there like, oh shoot. So I guess the Tommy ended up noticing that, so he ended up following where the snake was, and he found them, and all hell broke loose from that. They started running and stuff. Nick actually does get hit by him, but not in a bad way to where he died, but he did get hit by him, I think like in the leg or something like that. He ended up falling to the ground. She ended up finding something to try to like fight him off or whatever, so he doesn't kill Nick. Yeah, it was just a lot going on. So some way her sister ended up crawling through this vent, because they found another way to like get through there or whatever. So they was crawling through the vent. She hears them in there struggling. She comes out, and when he's about to hit Ziggy, her sister actually ends up stabbing him in the back. He ended up falling to the ground or whatever. She ends up stunning him in a way. I think that stab killed him, because she like, was it in the back or in the back of the neck? I don't know. She stabbed him in a way where it kind of killed him, so he fell to the ground, and that was it. So they thought it was over or whatever. So they kind of sitting there like pleading their case with each other, like, oh, I love you, I'm sorry about everything, I would never treat you that way again. Kind of having like a little moment of like, I forgive you, I'm sorry about everything type of situation. From that scene, the friend actually comes out of nowhere too, and they're like, let's figure out how to, because the friend ended up finding the witch's hand. So they was like, okay, so we just need to find her body. They didn't know that her body was actually buried somewhere else. They thought it was under the tree, but it wasn't. So they like trying to figure out, they're talking, having like that little powerful speech moment, and they was like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna end all of this. So while she's doing that, lo and behold, Tommy pops up out of nowhere and freaking stabs her with the hatchet in the back of the head. Like, oh my god, it was crazy. So that went down, they screaming, they end up running, they take off running or whatever. They end up grabbing the hand from the girl and started running outside. So they're running and they're trying to get to the tree. But as they're getting to the tree, the other killer started popping out of nowhere. It was the little boy killer, the milkman killer, and then the what was the other one? It was the Ruby Lane girl came out, like coming out the woods. So they're like trying to dig so they can hurry up and try to bury the hand or whatever. But then Tommy ass ended up coming out of nowhere and was about to hit her sister Ziggy. So she got up. They was tussling, like they were trying to fight them off or whatever. So Ziggy was trying to like bury, hurry up and dig for the hand or dig for the body. Ooh, I cannot talk and do this at the same time. Hold on, let me finish. Ziggy is digging, and her sister trying to fight off the Tommy or whatever, but of course he overturned it, and she saw that, and he started beating on her. So Ziggy got up and was trying to run to go and help her, and out of nowhere the milkman ended up stabbing her, and like it was just crazy. Like that scene was just so sad because they were right there, and then it started pouring down raining. they just really just getting beat up by these people. So Tommy is going in on her sister Cindy while the other man is kind of going in stabbing her, and they're like laying on the ground looking at each other like, I guess this is it, we're gonna be together forever, you know, stuff like that. It was like a little sentimental moment while they're getting killed. Like, what the heck? So that was going down, and then yeah, they ended up dying. I should have did that first before I put my mascara on, because I feel like that's gonna run all over my face, but whatever. So they ended up dying, and then the scene went black. So you thought that was gonna be like the end of the movie, but then it comes back, and then Nick out of nowhere comes over to Cindy, no, to Ziggy, and was, you know, pushing her, you know, trying to give her CPR to bring her back to life, because he didn't want her to die. Like, he pretty much at this time, I think he was in love with her. You know, some people do be having like love at first sight tendencies, and I think that was the case with her. Like, he really, really liked her. So he giving her CPR, and she ends up coming back to life or whatever. But then, you know, it goes to the next scene to where, you know, the police, she's on a stretcher or whatever, and they're like questioning her like, what's going on and stuff like that. And Nick is kind of standing there, and she was like, it's real, the curse is real. And the police officer kind of looks at Nick, and he's like, no, it's not, like basically denying everything that just happened. So she just kind of looked at him like, are you serious right now? Like, we literally just went through the same trauma, and you saying no? So she ends up wheeling off, and then it goes back to Ziggy as she's older, because she was basically telling the story to Dina and Josh, because in the beginning of the movie, they ended up breaking into her house and they brought the girl over there. They brought Sam over there because she was possessed, because they thought that Ziggy was gonna have all the answers, or C. Berman was gonna have all of the answers to like stop the possession of Sam. But she was like, no, like, what the heck? Like, I don't know what to do in this situation. So they ended up tying her in the bathroom and stuff like that. And that's when they sat down, and she proceeded to tell the story of what went down in her situation, of what happened. And then when it came back to her after that last scene, she was just kind of letting them know like, it never ends, because I still hear the voices, like all of that crazy stuff. That's why I stayed locked in my house, because I'm not trying to be out there when it goes down. So yeah, that's pretty much how that ends, you know. And then as it goes off, it shows next scenes of like part 3 of what you should look for, which is Fear Street Part 3, 1666. So that kind of goes over everything of how it all began. Like, and I watched that last night, and I'm just like, by the time you see this, it won't be last night, but I'm just letting you know, from recording this video last night, I watched part 3, and it was just like, wow, like it went totally left. You know what I'm saying? Like, the way it started off, it was just kind of like, is this really how this is going to be? This is what they're going to portray it as. But as it kept going, and then switching to another scene, like, it just blew my mind. It was really good. Whoever directed this and came up with everything, they did a good job, because the storyline is there. Like, everything connects. You start seeing everything. So yeah, y'all. All right, you guys, so that pretty much sums up this Movies and Makeovers. This was Fear Street Part 2, 1978, which kind of went over the story of C. Berman, of how everything happened with her. So I think I'm gonna get better though. I'm gonna try to make footnotes so I can kind of tell the story a little bit clearer and a little bit better, versus like, wait, no, let me go back. So I'm new to this. This is only the second video, so I just kind of wanted to put that out there. Like, I am gonna think of ways to kind of tell the story better, so I would definitely get into the habit of making footnotes after I watch the movie, so I can know part by part to bring to you in a cleaner way. That's just me thinking about it after doing everything and thinking about what I just told. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. This is the look that we came up with, just a nice little neutral beat, you know, for today. I do want to take pictures, so kind of got that together or whatever. But yes, you guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Definitely give it a thumbs up. If you are new, definitely subscribe to the Fab family. We do have a ton more content that will be coming to the channel. And also comment down below on other videos, or not videos, other movies that you guys would would like for me to come on here and talk about. Like if you guys already seen it or whatever the case may be, you want me to tell about it and kind of give my little feedback in a way, like within the movie of like different scenes and stuff, like what the heck, why is it this way, all of that good stuff. Just comment down below, or even if it's a movie that you've seen and you feel like I haven't seen, just let me know and I'll kind of check that out or whatever. But yes, you guys, what I always say, I will talk to you all in my next video. Bye.